Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You made the trip. This is episode 578, and that's a lot of episodes. So we have a lot of fun doing this, and invite you to come on down and visit. Come on down and help out, or come on down and be on the show. It's all up to you. No pressure here. I got some interesting stories. I want to start off with the federal story, and then the rest of this stuff's about the state and what's happening with our legalization. And boy, we got some news there. But anyway, but this federal story is real important. And this was from the Hill.com website. This is dated June 1st, titled "Lawmakers Brace for Marijuana Vote-A-Rama." By Tom Devaney. Lawmakers are prepping for what could turn into a marijuana vote-a-rama Wednesday, sources say. And by the way, side note here, and I remember now, we're talking about federally here. This is federal. Pot advocates expect lawmakers to introduce at least half a dozen marijuana-related appropriations amendments that would rock back the Justice Department's authority to enforce drug laws around the country. The marijuana amendments would handicap the Department of Justice in its fight with states over the enforcement of local pot laws. Pot advocates are making a big push in advance of the vote to rally lawmakers to their side. The Justice Department would be prohibited from using federal funds to interfere with states' medical marijuana laws under an amendment expected from the California delegation, Representative Dana Rohrabacher, and Republican, and Sam Farr, the Democrat. The measure was approved by Congress for the first time in 2014, but it must be renewed each year when the DOJ's spending bill expires. Some lawmakers hope to push the boundaries even further. An amendment from Representatives Tom McClintock, Republican in California, and Jared Polis, Democrat, Colorado, would prohibit DOJ from using federal funds to interfere with any state marijuana law, and include laws permitting the recreational use of pot. This amendment would not only protect critically ill medical marijuana patients from federal prosecution, but, unlike previous versions, will also apply to adult recreational use of marijuana in states where it is legal, like Colorado and Washington, wrote Dan Riffle, Director of Federal Policies at the Marijuana Policy Project, in an email to supporters asking them to lobby their congressman on the issue. Another amendment from Representative Susan Bomazzi, Democrat from Oregon, would protect state hemp laws from DOJ interference. This would pave the way for farmers to grow hemp in the United States. Hemp comes from the same plant as pot, but it does not have the same intoxicating effect, Angel said. Instead, hemp is used to make things like paper, rope, and textiles. You don't smoke hemp, Angel said. It won't get you high. Several other pot amendments are still in the works, including one that would shift money to the Drug Enforcement Agency's budget away from enforcing marijuana laws towards solving the rape kit backlog and funding treatment programs for veterans, Riffle said. So that's hope. There's definite hope on the federal side, and it's amazing how some politicians are starting to open up the lights coming on, so to speak. Anyway, so now we're in Oregon. This is an article that was on the marijuanapolitics.com, which is the website of Alex Rogers, who is a medical marijuana clinic owner. He owns two of them, one in Medford and one in Eugene. And so he wrote on the website an open letter to Oregon State Senator Jenny Burdick. Dear Oregon State Senator Jenny Burdick, we have never met, but you seem to have made up your mind about me without ever communicating with me in any way. Your preconceived notions of me and everyone that opposes Senate Bill 964 are misguided and wrong. When you are asked about my opposition to a bill that will force hundreds, if not thousands, of sick and disabled patients to lose their medical cannabis gardens, you told the Oregonian that I'm primarily interested in preserving his business. Your statement is irresponsible, not fitting for an elected official. Such a careless statement shows that you haven't done your homework on me, just as you really haven't done your homework on the Oregon medical marijuana program, particularly for someone who opposed Measure 91, as you admitted recently on KATU's Your Voice, Your Vote. It is really a shame that someone who voted against Measure 91 would be appointed to chair a committee that is supposed to be implementing Measure 91. I guess it shouldn't be surprising that you are willing to go against the will of the voters. I am assuming that you are referring to my medical cannabis clinic businesses, Ashland Alternative Health and Northwest Alternative Health. Medical marijuana, regardless of whether the harmful Senate Bill 964 passes or not, is here to stay. If I was concerned primarily about my medical clinic business, why would I support Measure 91 in the first place? If money was my motivation, why would I support an even more progressive legalization measure with bigger possession and cultivation limits? However, despite your best intentions, the OMMP is here to stay for a variety of reasons. Senate Bill 964 won't hurt my clinic businesses. It will only hurt the most vulnerable patients who lose their gardens because you force some growers to drop their patients based upon their plant numbers or the land use zone they grow in. Further harming patients, you support cities and counties banning medical marijuana dispensaries without a public vote, further denying patients safe access. You may not be aware of some of my business ventures. The Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conference and the International Cannabis Business Conference. A quick Google search will inform you that these conferences have been very successful. Your patient-harming Senate Bill 964 will actually increase the attendance to these business conferences. The more changes to the law in general and the more rules and regulations the state puts into place only leads to more ticket sales to marijuana business conferences, as people in the industry will seek out the latest information. Finally, it is insulting to everyone that opposes Senate Bill 964, which includes a strong majority of your constituents, for you to falsely claim that opposition is only about money. For some reason, you don't consider the business interests of privateer holdings and the Oregon Cannabis PAC, formerly the Growers PAC, when they seek more OMMP rules and regulations. More rules and regulations put in place help those with deep pockets, like well-funded private equity firms, PACs that cost $10,000 to join, and law firms specializing in the marijuana industry. My business will be okay. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing for the poor, sick, and disabled patients that you will harm by passing Senate Bill 964. Thus, I will continue to fight against the bill and every bill that will harm the most vulnerable patients and the OMMP. You don't seem to be paying attention to the people contacting you, urging you to stop hurting patients, but neither did Dwight Holton. At this rate, you may just suffer the same fate as Mr. Holton, as Democratic primary voters tend to support sick and disabled patients over well-funded business interests that work to pass laws that trample the sick and the poor. Sincerely, Alex Rogers. So, yes, so that's an excellent letter and an excellent point. And of course, who knows if she even read it? And if so who knows? But it is amazing that we have legalization passed by the people. 56% of the vote. That's a 12-point margin that it passed by. Which is a very good showing, and yet we have legislatures that don't support it, they don't understand it, and they're getting tired of hearing about it, and they could care less about anybody's rights, including medical marijuana patients. That's just the way it is, and they're the ones that are in charge of implementing this whole thing. So it's no wonder that it's in chaos and it's a mess. And that bill, the Senate Bill 964, did pass. And with that reminds me, let me jump in here and tell this real quick story. Floyd Prozanski, this is considered to be one of our friends as far as legalization and cannabis issues. This is Floyd Prozanski, and let's jump in. Floyd Prozanski, a little history here. I was told he was taking down posters at the Oregon Country Fair. And so I asked him about it next time I saw him. He said yes, and he's not part of the Oregon Country Fair, by the way. He doesn't belong to the Oregon Country Fair. He's not, but he's just there as a supporter. He said, yes, I took him down if they were hanging on trees, on the fences. They just make a mess and they look unsightly. But we have bulletin boards for that. No problem for it to be on bulletin boards. So I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. So the next year, I went out to the country fair, getting ready to look for those bulletin boards and hang my posters. Guess what? There aren't any. The only bulletin board is the one that's on the inside that the fair family has access to, but not the public. And that's the only one out there. So that kind of raised my eyebrows. So anyway, and then, so let me read this real quick, because this is hot. This came off of Facebook, but I know the source, and this happened. The vote on SB 964 in this state Senate was 29-1 in favor. And remember, we don't want this, but it passed 29-1. The lone vote against was Senator Floyd Prozanski. Prozanski was a member of the Senate Special Committee that considered SB 964. In that committee's single 25-minute meeting, he voted yes on each amendment and voted yes to approve the bill and send it to the Senate floor with a do pass recommendation. In the Senate, when it was clear that his bill would sail through easily, he decided to cast his lone symbolic vote against it. Nothing had changed between those two votes that I'm aware of. Perhaps Senator Prozanski believes that medical marijuana and drug policy reform advocates have terribly short memories. Perhaps he thought that no one was paying attention to the committee. Or maybe he's just trying to please a donor who's both forgiving and forgetful. I don't know. But I look forward to asking Senator Prozanski about it sometime, hopefully soon. So when I hear some more about this, you'll hear from me. And by the way, I've got some images of Prozanski, and you notice his raised eyebrow. He has this thing about this raised eyebrow, and he just looks so sincere and speaks so sincerely, and you know. But this particular incident, I'm saying, is really, really shocking, and yet points out some facts and truth, you know. And so he's supposed to be on our side, and then he pulls this. He votes, and maybe this again. He voted yes on each amendment and voted yes to approve the bill and sent it to the Senate floor with a do pass recommendation. So then he turned around later and went the other way. So hey, Senator Floyd Prozanski, is that what it's like to be a politician? Is that what you have to do? I don't understand it, but I'm sure anxious to hear the answers, and you'll be hearing it from me when I find it. Prozanski's making his money for being at the Oregon Medical Marijuana Business Conferences I just mentioned. Yeah, he's there, featured speaker. You know, he was making some, you know, he's getting good donations. So that's where the fat pockets are, is these business conferences, and you can kind of see what's going on. It's pay to play. That's the new paradigm, being a political activist in cannabis. We'll be right back for the second half. Welcome back to the second half of episode 578. We're talking about Oregon and Oregon's implementation of the legalization initiative, and then what the legislature is doing to the Oregon medical marijuana program, like they're known to do. But anyway, excuse me, itchy nose there. Let me speak real quickly on a couple of notices here. Lane community students, listen up. We need to start an SSDP, that's Students for a Sensible Drug Policy, chapter at Lane community. I know there's a lot of support for cannabis and cannabis issues at Lane community, so we need at least a couple people to get things rolling, you know. And we could put up, I'd make up a flyer, post, whatever you need, but we just need somebody that's a student out there that could work on that and actually open a chapter. Students for a Sensible Drug Policy is an excellent organization. It's, in my opinion, a 20-year activist in legal and cannabis affairs. Legalization affairs is probably one of the top 5, as far as I'm concerned, top 3 maybe. So anyway, incredible outfit. So you could use some help and get a hold of nothing else. Get a hold of me, dankbagman@hotmail.com. That's dank, D-A-N-K, dankbagman@hotmail.com. Also, the Hempfest meetings are weekly now, so we're meeting volunteer meetings. We're meeting every Saturday at 2 p.m. at the Hempfest venue, which hopefully you already know. That's at the Maurie Jacobs Park, across from Valley River, across the Valley River at the end of the footbridge and at the Maurie Jacobs Park. So we'll be there on the concrete slab by the bathrooms at 2 o'clock every Saturday. So try to come down one of the Saturdays and sign up and get on a crew and volunteer to help the Hempfest. It's an all-volunteer effort. It's a free event, free to the public. It's in a city park, and we've been doing this since 2003. And we always use some help. We use about 100 volunteers every year. And so anyway, please sign up and give us a hand. So let me jump into the next Oregon story about the legislature and what's happening in Salem. This was in I got this off the website of the Oregonian, which is Oregon Live, May 27th this year, of course, and this is written by Jeff Mapes. Oregon moves forward. One-stop shopping for medical and recreational marijuana sales. Oregon liquor control officials on Wednesday presented a plan for allowing realtors to sell both medical and recreational marijuana, and it seemed to win support from key legislatures. Under the proposal, medical marijuana growers willing to accept strict regulatory controls would be able to sell to retailers selling both medical and recreational marijuana. However, there still does not appear to be any consensus on when retail sales of recreational marijuana will actually start. Rob Partridge, chairman of the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, told legislatures Wednesday that the state could run afoul of federal officials if they try to start sales before a strict seed-to-sale tracking system is in place. That will take until the last half of 2016, he said. Several members of the House Senate committee charged with implementing the marijuana legalization initiative approved by voters said they still want to start sales not long after possession becomes legal on July 1st. Even without strict controls in place, Representative Ann Lindinger, Democrat, Lake Oswego, and a co-chair of the committee, said it is still better to start bringing marijuana into the legal market even if it's not clear if it was grown legally. Lindinger and other legislatures say they're now looking seriously at whether they could start sales on October 1st. In any case, marijuana advocates and people in the industry cheered the idea of providing one-stop shopping for both medical and recreational users. You would have the best of two worlds and not squeeze anybody out, said Anthony Johnson, the chief petitioner of the legalization initiative approved last November by voters. The proposal would allow more than 200 medical marijuana dispensaries in the state to also consider serving the recreational market, something many of the dispensary owners have said they would like to do. Legislatures would have to make several legal changes to merge the medical and recreational marijuana systems. Partridge said he would present several amendments to House Bill 3400, a measure legislatures are working on to implement the recreational system to accomplish just that. Lawmakers seem inclined to accept those changes. This is what I hoped we would get to, said Representative Peter Buckley, Democrat in Ashland, who has been a strong backer of legalizing marijuana. At the same time, legislatures continued to pepper Partridge with questions about starting sales earlier than he has anticipated. Senate Minority Leader Ted Ferrari, Republican John Day, said it didn't make any sense to legalize possession on July 1st, but provide non-medical marijuana users no legal way to buy the drug. Isn't that a direct contribution to incentivizing the black market? The black market, asked Farley. What we're really saying to Oregonians is keep accessing your black market supplier until sometime in the last half of 2016. Partridge countered that he was instead concerned that it would put the state at odds with the 2013 memo from Deputy U.S. Attorney General James Cole, laying out how the Obama administration would enforce federal laws against marijuana after voters in Washington and Colorado legalized it. Until the OLCC is ready to start retail sales, Partridge added, people can rely on homegrown marijuana. He also noted that the legislature could move back the July 1 date when possession becomes legal, although he said, I don't think you would do that politically or otherwise. So anyway, there you have it. So it's not a pretty picture. Again, Partridge, which is in charge of the in charge of the OLCC, which is implementing Measure 91. He didn't support Measure 91 either, and yet he's in charge of implementing it. So that just shows you how wacky everything is and why we're having such a tough run at it. And even Anthony Johnson, I'm going to reread this quote. You would have the best of both worlds and not squeeze anybody out, said Anthony Johnson, the chief sponsor of the marijuana legalization initiative. He's changing his tune. I'm really looking forward to talking to that guy. I know him personally, have his cell phone number, so I'll be talking to him. I'm really anxious to see why he, it sounds to me like he did a 180, so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. And then I hear finally, I mean, I knew this was coming, or at least being thought about, and he says, he also noted that, this is back to Partridge, the head of OLCC. He also noted that the legislature could move back the July 1 date when possession becomes legal. Yes, they can. They can do that, and that's why everybody talks about, oh, by July 1st it's going to be legal. Don't hold your breath, folks. We're talking about the Oregon legislature. You know, we're talking about the Oregon legislature that has a history of not liking marijuana issues. They don't like medical marijuana patients, but they love that money. And so that's why after making money off the medical marijuana program, making money off of sick people, they were making good money each year and putting it into the budget. So then they decided at the last minute, without telling anybody, at the end of the session, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they doubled the fees. That's when they added the $50 grower fee. That's when just egregious acts, and it was voted for unanimously. So anyway, that's a disgusting thing that's going on. So now here already, and finally somebody said it publicly, you know, well, we could move the date back, you know. So that's what the people voted on, is July 1st. But like I said, folks, don't hold your breath. So I mean, I have no pleasure in reporting that, but that is reality. So and here's a quick story that was quite interesting, I thought, and this is dated May 27th also. And the source is the American Association of Clinical Chemistry. The title is, Any Dose of Alcohol Combined with Cannabis Significantly Increases Levels of THC in Blood. The summary is written, and it says, it's cannabis plus alcohol is one of the most frequently detected drug combinations in car accidents. Yet in the interaction of these two compounds is still poorly understood. A study shows for the first time that the simultaneous use of alcohol and cannabis produces significantly higher blood concentrations of cannabis's main psychoactive constituent THC, as well as THC's primary active metabolite than cannabis use alone. Currently, 23 states in the District of Columbia have legalized medical cannabis, and Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska have decriminalized recreational cannabis use. As cannabis becomes more widely accessible, the verdict remains out on whether cannabis intoxication increases the risk of car accidents. Experts agree, however, that the combination of cannabis and alcohol raises the chance of crashing more than either substance by itself. In a study of 1,882 motor vehicle deaths, the U.S. Department of Transportation found an increased accident rate of 0.7 for cannabis use, 7.4 for alcohol use, and 8.4 for cannabis and alcohol use. So, to shed light on the ways in which cannabis and alcohol interact to negatively impact driving, a group of researchers studied 19 adult participants who drank placebo or low-dose alcohol 10 minutes prior to inhaling 50 milligrams of placebo low-dose THC or high-dose 6.7 THC vaporized cannabis. The researchers found that with no alcohol, the median maximum blood concentrations for low and high THC doses were 32.7 and 42.2 respectively. Let's see. So anyway, it goes on the details, but the significantly higher blood THC values. Let's see. Oh, okay, here it is. Our results will help facilitate forensic interpretation and inform the debate on drug driving legislation. Excuse me. So that's going to be interesting, because at this point, as this article says, there's no level that has been set yet, and you know it's coming, because that's one of the complaints of people that are anti-marijuana is that, well, they're intoxicated, they're all intoxicated, and most people that use cannabis can tell you that there's a whole big difference between alcohol and cannabis. But again, interesting to see that when they're combined, it's even worse. So anyway, we got to be educated and being willing to listen to the truth. So anyway, we'll see you next week, and thanks for being here. Thanks, and bye.